And you know how we keep bringing you new things? Every episode I say something new is happening. Today's new thing is that nobody's remote. We have 4 people in the room and no call-ins. So that's really, really unusual. So we're all here in Philly in the sound studio, and we all include Marion Wren in from Abu Dhabi again and gracing us with her physical presence here in Philly. Hi, Mare.
Hi, it's so nice to be physically present in Philadelphia. Yay.
And I can touch her knees again.
You should touch in my knees. So you know what, before we go any further, I want to give a shout out to Airbnb. And a shout out to NYU Abu Dhabi for having fall break and allowing me the time to come to New York and Philadelphia and sit at this table with you. And my husband and I rented a very cool place in Old City through Airbnb. So 3 cheers, Airbnb.
All right.
I don't know why I did that, other than to say maybe we should start saying things that get us advertising.
Do you want to say anything else about yourself before we move on?
Yeah, so I direct the writing program at NYU Abu Dhabi. I write essays, and I am a cultural historian. That's me.
And immediately on her left, right? Yeah.
Hi, sharing mics with Marion is Sarah Akett, and I'm the current editorial assistant for Drexel Publishing Group, and I'm a third-year English student at Drexel. So that's me.
Woohoo.
My name is Tim Fitz. I teach here at Drexel University, and I write mostly short stories, and I have a collection coming out with Mad Hat Press this spring. And I would like to announce that I promised one of my classes that this weekend I will be having my first Tastykake.
Wow.
I've never had a Tastykake. And we had a big argument about that, and I'm going to...
What kind are you going to get for your first one?
I've researched them.
I would imagine.
And I'm gonna go for the pumpkin spice because it doesn't have hydrogenated oils, and it has a pretty low sugar gram count. It's like 17 or something like that. Some are like 40.
Yeah, my personal favorite is the Tasty Claire. Have you had that one?
No.
That's probably like a stick of butter with like whipped cream on it.
Listen, Tim, I don't think that's going to satisfy your students. Or you, essentially. Yeah. That's not a real Tastykake. That's some newfangled pumpkin spice.
I know.
Well,
no, man. No,
cherry,
no. You got to have like the Tandy cake, the classic. That's that peanut butter one.
Are you talking tasty? What are you talking about?
I'm talking
Tasty
about
cake.
those little boxes of...
The Tasty Cake is in a box. It's like a
the little
cylindrical
blue box.
It's a particular kind of Tasty Cake.
They have a bunch of different flavors.
But I know what you're talking. You're talking crimpets.
You're welcome.
No.
Tastykake.
Right? This is all about
Tasty Cake has that
placement.
one that has peanut butter and yellow cake.
That's one of the kinds of Tasty
Right.
Cakes.
That's what I'm
But what
saying.
he's talking about are those pies in those cardboard boxes.
Yeah, the pies in the cardboard boxes.
That's
with the blue Tastykake label.
Well,
Is that
you
from
just
the
said
South?
a Tasty Cake.
A Tastykake.
It is.
You've had nothing Tasty Cake brand, though?
I've never had a Tastykake
Well,
brand.
that's what I'm saying. You should
thing in my
have
life.
something classic, not necessarily the pie.
Oh, what I think the pie is the classic. What do your students want you to do? Just any Tasty
Like
Cake?
a crimpet is a classic Tasty Cake.
Which is a delicious
Remember that
Tasty
hotel that we stayed at that they had just in Philly, and they had just a tray of Tasty Cakes up in the VIP lounge?
There's a way to
Because it was
get
like
me
a
to
Philly
try
thing.
these.
That's right.
But
That's
they
right.
had the little cakes with jelly and stuff. But anyway, I disapprove of the pumpkin spice. I think you should move on. I think that's a newfangled flavor.
I'm not going to do the jelly stuff in
What?
the middle, but I'll try the eclair, and I'll try
Tasty
the
Claire. Tasty
other
Claire.
flavors.
Highly recommend the Tasty
Yeah.
Claire.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost you're defeating the purpose if you're reading the sugar and the hydrogenated oil
Yeah, I know.
stuff.
I
The
know.
students want you to have an effing Tasty Cake.
Yeah, and also Tasty Cake, if I'm not mistaken, is dedicated to the freshest ingredients. And I'm not doing just product placement, but this is true. This is why they don't ship outside the region. I should fill my suitcase full of Tasty Cakes and take it back to Abu Dhabi.
I
That's
think
what
they
I
ship,
should
but
do.
they definitely ship outside the region.
I don't think
You need
they
a
do.
license for that
Look,
in Abu
Sarah's
Dhabi?
agreeing with me.
Well, I mean,
only
not
in
in
the
the
area.
stores, but you can order them.
I don't know.
You can't go to a store and pick it up, but you can order Tasty Cakes.
I'll happily sample whichever Tasty Cakes anybody brings me. If somebody brings me a suitcase
All right.
filled with a variety,
All right, so the idea here is come
I'll
to
sit
Philly,
down and I'll try them.
Right.
stay
I'll
at
try
an
them all.
Airbnb, and eat tasty
Yeah.
cake.
And
Right.
read poems.
Yeah, and contact us, and we'll hang out.
I'm not going to stretch
So-
it out over weeks either. If I try them, I'm going to try them in one sitting. I'm just going to do one
One tasty
Tasty
cake
cake.
experience.
thing.
I dig it.
You should do
Tweet,
power
live
eating.
tweet.
Live tweet a
Okay.
power eating extravaganza of tasty cakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we know how Tim feels about power eating. Let's not get him started.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I'm Kathleen Volk Miller, and I've just been talking this whole time and didn't say who I am. So that's me. And I direct the graduate program in publishing here at Drexel, and have co-edited PBQ with Marion for a very, very, very long time.
Who's tickling your knee?
And she's touching my knees now. Okay, so we're going to do 3 poems by Laura Ross. The first one is Bora Bora. Who would like to read? Wow, okay. Y'all want to?
Sarah, you've been nominated. Do you feel like
Well,
it?
fine.
Okay.
Bora Bora, 1996. A shaft of blue splintered into 1,000 nuances, shed them into the sea beneath our tiki hut, wedged on stilts into hunger clouds of shimmery fish, oysters lipping black pearls. We married there, on the shore between the neon chakra of sky and water, a handful of drowsy natives shaking New Year's Eve from the folds of their parios. Dancing, a tide etched in sand. Later, petals strung in whites already sighing into sepia, from our balcony we sought those old stars from home. Palm trees swaying festively in dark silhouette across the unadorned horizon of the Pacific. Love, a sugar rimmed we shared in sips, cowrie shells strung and whispering at our throats, every edge garnished in hibiscus, sunburn, pineapple. In the shallows, the moray eel we spotted earlier, prehistoric face bobbling from his pulpit of stone. Before the ceremony, we tossed in our pockets of foreign coins, wishes aimed at his blind scowl. Later, moonlight uprooted the slippery ribbon of his tail, while the current floated him, floorboard by floorboard, across you and me, a benediction in a sleeve of seawater, the round polyp mouths of the reef opening in the dark like a choir.
Very nice, thank you.
Nicely read, Sarah. Thank you.
And I should have mentioned that you can read along and look at that poem on PBQ's website. So do so, please, pbqmag.org. And so many beautiful images in here, right? Kind of stacked up images.
Yeah, I'm drawn into this description of this lovely, faraway beach experience. Love a sugared rim we shared in sips, cowrie shells strung and whispering at our throats, every edge garnished in hibiscus, sunburn, pineapple, is a really lovely sentence, right? And the way it spreads across the page. Then I get a little lost, though. In the shallows, the moray eel we'd spotted earlier wishes, like, what happens with that moray eel? Right? It's they spot an eel, and then later moonlight uprooted the slippery ribbon of its tail, while the current floated him floorboard by floorboard across you and me. Like, help me with that part. Does that make sense? And I'm sure it does, Laura Ross. I'm sure it does. It's just my brain is dim.
I think one of the things holding us back is that there's punctuation, like there's periods and things like that throughout the poem, but there are they're not complete sentences. So I think that's disrupting our understanding.
I felt like, the moray eel after that beautiful love line is right? Like it's scary and dark,
Yeah.
but it's not,
Right.
right?
Yeah, so-
While the current floated him floorboard by floorboard across you and me, a benediction
In a
sleeve of seawater.
Yeah.
So, you know what? I'm imagining all the way here that they're staying in one of those places where the ocean floor, where there's a glass floor, so that you can see the ocean.
Yeah, it's like one of those
Yeah.
lovely huts, right?
Yeah,
Above the water.
I'm imagining that too, but I think the introduction of the eel was the potentiality of something dark, which then is not.
Right, which goes to before the ceremony, we tossed in our pockets of foreign coins, wishes aimed at his blind scowl, and the syntax of that sentence is a little bit tangled. But what I get out of it is like you're sort of throwing money, making a wish, right, against the potential
Right.
torment, evil, right, and it comes back to them as a benediction,
Right.
which is cool.
It is
Right.
a little confusing if they're in the water.
I don't think they're in the water. I think they're in a hut with a glass floor.
But then
that's
it would
why
be
they're
weird
able to have
tossing
drinks.
the coins.
Oh,
Because then it
true.
would bounce off the glass.
Unless they're right on the edges. They saw him earlier.
Yeah.
And now they see him again. I think they threw the money in earlier too.
But we tossed in our pockets.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
not tossing the coins.
Right? It's like, they're perhaps
Okay.
keeping them in their pockets. Listen, before we go any further, though, can I just say how much I love that first line? A shaft of blue splintered into 1,000 nuances. That's just a great description of color.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to stay in one of those.
So does Haley. I've
She
heard Haley
does,
talk
she
about that
does.
too. Like that's a
Yeah.
life
Do you
goal
think
for
there's
her.
a Airbnb that we can
In fact, there is.
our tiki hut wedged on stilts into hunger clouds
Dear
of
Airbnb.
shimmery fish?
I wonder if maybe some of that first part before the moray eel, there's a lot of real tropic imagery of swaying trees and lights shafting. And I wonder if palm trees swaying festively in the dark, I wonder if it could just be turned down like a degree. Because there's so much of it. And then, I was relieved to see the moray eel because I thought, this is going to be all just the most beautiful day in this person's life that I'm not living.
Yeah.
And now we get a moray eel, so it's okay. Now but there's some conflict and some, low vibrations.
Yeah.
You know
Even
what?
even if it's not dangerous, it's there and you're
Right,
aware of it.
right.
And then it makes it believable.
Absolutely.
And then you can kind of relax.
Yeah.
The line that you just quoted is my least favorite line for exactly the reasons you're citing. Palm tree swaying festively in dark silhouette across the unadorned horizon of the Pacific. That's just
Wow,
that is a bit much, and it's in the dead center, and then it's followed by the
Right.
lovely line that you already quoted,
Yeah.
with the love of sugared rim. So it almost highlights more its tropeness.
Yeah, well, I think for me too, this sort of Paul Gauguin moment of the depiction of natives is, on one hand, lovely, but also made me a little itchy, right? We married there on the shore between the neon chakra of sky and water, a handful of drowsy natives shaking New Year's Eve from the folds of their pareos. That sort of like generalization of the natives, right? And this sort of, Bora Bora destination it makes me cringe a little, right? But it's in keeping with that sort of depiction of the island, depiction of the tropical, depiction of this blissed out thing that they're going through.
I wonder if that last sentence, the last line, opening in the dark like a choir, would it be stronger if it was just opening in the dark?
No,
We
because
wouldn't see that.
The choir went with the benediction
Okay.
for me.
Yeah.
Catholic imageries.
I
Okay.
like the polyp mouths of the reef
Okay.
too, right? This
Yeah.
sort of like opening and closing, right, of the reef, right?
Well, he was just saying get rid of like a choir, but I like the choir.
I'm with you on the choir.
What do you, I don't know what to do. Are we saying that we like this, but we want some edits?
No, I don't know. I think we're having a conversation about pleasure, frankly, right? Like the description is the description of a moment of happiness, as you said, Tim, in this person's life, right? And is the rich description of bliss, even with the sort of threat of negativity, is just the description pleasurable enough for the reader to be transported to Bora Bora? And is that enough, right? And the of a payoff, right? To sound instrumental for the poem.
For me, it's got to go way beyond the pleasure thing, because we're post-pleasure.
But we are not post-pleasure.
Nothing is. Nothing is just.
See, you can tell this is a man who's never had a Tasty-Cake. So let's just put it in perspective.
Revisit
there's no
that
pleasure.
claim
There's no pleasure
on the
without
other side of a
steaks.
tasty
Maybe I should say there's no such thing as like steak-free pleasure. There's something. There's always some other thing lurking.
Right.
So I do like the. So the issue for me is when I'm reading these 4.5 lines of pure pleasure and all these postcard types of images.
Yeah.
I mean, that moray eel comes in just in time.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm on the verge of being out. And then the moray eel comes, and that's okay. I mean, that's pushing it right up into the limit. I have no problem with that. But it does come in just in time. I maybe could use a little bit less of the palm tree stuff, but
Yeah. I get you. Tim, I'm just going to jump in and say, yeah, right? Like, so what's that? Roland Barthes talks about it as jouissance, right? It's that kind of pleasure that's also threat. Like you're always on the edge of bliss, right?
Right.
And you're right. There's no threat in this until the eel comes through, and even when the eel comes, he turns into a benediction before it becomes the edge of something, right?
I mean, I don't like these moments in life, but there are these moments where everything's great and you just got a nice groove. Every facet of your life works, and it lasts about 30 minutes. Because you're like, if I could just keep it like this, and then something bad always, and then you start to be afraid, okay, what's going to be? And it's something, and it's soon.
Yeah.
And then you got to go right back down and build yourself back up.
Can't we allow the speaker a little time in Bora Bora on her honeymoon?
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, that's all she's asking for.
Well, she does it. There's the moray eel. The moray eel saves everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the honeymoon is still expensive.
Yeah.
And there's the whole study out there about the cost of a wedding versus the happiness and longevity of the marriage. There's the moray eel. It's got to be there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's Disney.
Yeah.
It's Disney without, it's like, it's like,
well, okay,
it becomes corny, but it does not.
Is it only that? I think I catch you, like, in terms of, like, if we stick it under the bigger rubric or umbrella of travel writing, right? Like, is this a postcard from Bora Bora, or is there some kind of idea unfolding in the poem that puts it in a different category of contemplation? I don't get that second part. For me, it feels like postcards from bliss, right? Like unless I'm misreading it, right?
Yeah. She's on her honeymoon and everything's perfect.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I'm
fine with that.
You don't hate her. You don't hate her for her tiki hut.
Nope.
I don't hate her for the tiki hut as long as the moray eel's there. As long as they're aware of the possibilities.
The possibility of suffering.
And then
we're fine with that.
Right. Yeah. Okay, we still have 2 more by Laura, so I think we should move on.
But I think it would not be the worst thing in the world to ask for some edits on, like, the palm tree stanza, even if it's just shaving off a couple of adverbs festively. The palm trees can just sway.
Are we shaving them festively?
That's what I want to know. Is it like a festive shaving of adjectives?
All right, let's vote.
Wait, is this how we do? We do. Okay. All right. Got it. All
1, 2, 3, vote. Guess it's no surprise it's in.
It's a festive yes for
Yay,
Bora Bora.
To Bora Bora.
And if Airbnb loves us, maybe
they'll send
us to Bora Bora.
And we can do a podcast from there.
From Bora Bora.
Joe, are you in? All right. He has a mobile recording unit. I'm just saying. I've seen it.
The euphemism.
Okay. The Walrus in the Tea Leaves for Doug. Are you ready? The Walrus in the Tea Leaves for Doug. Darling, it wasn't the news you'd expected, and when you told me about it, I'd giggled. Conjured images of broken symmetries, kaleidoscopes and compass, magnetic poles and mirrors gone random. I knew what you were hoping for. I knew what you were hoping for, how you'd tilted your throat back and swallowed down the void. The psychic parsing through the rack line for messages left in a seaweedy clots of chamomile or Earl Grey. Speckle and flack, dark nebula splat against a bone-colored sky. You said she'd seemed baffled by the walrus. Awkward animal, all teeth and tail. You told me he'd risen twice from the wet ashes that morning, buoyant and robust in his island cup, nosing through the diorama of dregs like a sea floor of mollusk shells pursed shut. His mouth, an incessant imprint on the rim. Oh, what lovely words. I apologize for the gaffe in the middle there, but gorgeous words.
You were thinking of buying tasty cakes.
Distracted by the walrus and the tea leaves. So if I'm understanding the logic of or the narrative of the poem, right? Darling. So this is Doug. Doug, perhaps it's for Doug, who got his tea leaves read, and I'm guessing it's in an island setting that this tea leaf reading was happening. Got his tea leaves read twice, and twice the walrus emerged in the dark ashes, right, in the cup. And that for some reason the appearance of the walrus was not exactly what he expected. And I don't know what a walrus means in my tea leaves. What would a walrus in my tea leaves mean?
Where's Jason? Call Jason.
Jason Schneiderman.
Jason's serving on the grand jury right now up in New York.
Accepting phone calls, though. We could probably text him.
Yesterday he took an emergency call from me.
I'm guessing it's not good,
Yeah,
the walrus.
right.
Although she giggles. Maybe she
giggles.
just, either she's lighthearted about it and he's taking it seriously, or it's not that bad. It's just weird. And you know what, Mara? I don't think they're still on an island. I think that
Okay.
in his island cup, like there would be an island of the tea
cup.
leaves
Okay,
are
you're right.
the little island in the walrus.
Buoyant and robust in his island cup. Got it.
Right.
Got it.
Not that part matters.
Yeah, no, but I think like just reading the two poems next to each other, you got the diorama
You were still
of
a Bora
dregs,
Bora.
the seafloor of mollusk shells pursed shut, right?
Yeah,
Like I'm still in the sea, and it starts up with the rack line too. The psychic parsing through the rack line for messages.
I think she's using all those images
to
right?
come
All the
through.
watery images. Yeah.
Like a seafloor of mollusk shells pursed shut, his mouth an insistent imprint on the rim. I have to say, one of the things I really like about Laura's poems is the precision of the sound in the words that she's choosing, and the sort of the elegance of the lines, right? Like I feel controlled in the reading, right?
Yeah.
I love that feeling. Like she's actually controlling my pace and controlling the sound
This
in
one,
my
I
head.
think, shows more of that kind of craft, don't you, than the last.
All teeth and tail is a great line.
Yeah.
Yeah, an awkward animal, all teeth and tail. I seriously want to know what's so bad about getting a walrus in your teacup.
Well, we'll look that up,
Right.
but not right now.
It's
Dear
kind of
listeners.
it's kind of the same poem as the other one. You start off with all of these kaleidoscopic images. One has the shafts of life. This has the tea, and it's all sort of exotic and amazing. And then there's the walrus and the eel.
Goo goo
It's just this great. I mean, I like that it has a parallel
Yeah.
to it.
Even the beginning image, that list of kaleidoscope and compass, magnetic poles, and mirrors gone random. I liked mirrors gone random.
Yeah.
You know, maybe think of like Alice in Wonderland, clocks going random, but mirrors gone random. What are they reflecting? That's cool.
So I don't, right? And I think for me, the poem takes a little bit long to get started, right? And in that sort of funhouse stuff, like I don't know where we are, and I don't know that I have to go 3 stanzas to not know where we are, because the psychic parsing through the rack line for messages is. That's pretty cure. Like you're getting your tea leaves read by a psychic who's
The title
baffled.
doesn't help you to start off with the walrus and the tea leaves?
Oh, absolutely. It lets me know exactly where we are, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and for the gist of the poem, right?
Right.
Which just makes the opening befuddlement a little long to be in
Yeah.
that. It's like a little bit of a throat clearing, right?
Right. I don't know. I was going down the rabbit hole right with her. It's all very
Nice.
Alice in
Yeah.
Wonderlandy for me.
Yeah.
You know, even the walrus makes me think of the Alice in Wonderland walrus.
I'm kind of confused too, but I think this is one of the types of poems where I would go back and read it. I usually wouldn't. I usually abandon things pretty quickly,
Yeah.
but I would go back to make sense of it. But if I went back up to the title, I probably wouldn't again, because if it's about the walrus and the tea leaves, I would really hope for or like a different title, some other,
Yeah.
because it's just too bullseye.
On the nose.
Yeah.
Hey, do you know? I don't know from the walrus in Alice in Wonderland. Do you know the walrus? Do you? What?
Go ahead. No. Okay, go ahead.
I don't know. I don't know enough about Alice in Wonderland to know about the walrus in Alice in Wonderland.
You can't picture that walrus?
I can't.
I don't know the plot line of him, but I
Yeah.
can picture him.
I can't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I'm just
Like one of the adventures she has
is with walrus.
is with a walrus.
I got whacked by Johnny Depp in Alice in Wonderland. And now I can't get his Mad Hatter out of my head.
When I first read the title, I thought it was a play on words, and that she was like the elephant in the room because it had the same setup. And so I didn't immediately think of Alice in Wonderland until we got to those kaleidoscope and compass images, like you said. However, I think I agree with you, Marion, though, that I don't know. I was really waiting to find out what that news was. And I was really waiting to find out what the walrus was. So for that, I feel like that descent into the rabbit hole, I didn't get that because, I don't know, I was just held up on what that news was.
And I guess it's, like I have to say, as the sister of a professional psychic, maybe it's okay not to understand the full significance of signs, right? Like maybe we don't need a sort of one-to-one correspondence, like the walrus equals health and long life, or it equals catastrophe or something, right? But I'm not even sure I know what the reaction is, right? Like what the emotional response from either the person getting his tea leaves read or her listening to the story is. Like there's a kind of emotional fuzziness around this.
Yeah.
All of which to say, I'm super interested in the scene and the setting and the premise of the poem, but those emotions seem a little bit fuzzy to me.
I think we just have a tendency to see everything as a bad omen. You see a Maury eel.
You do.
Well, it's Philly.
And you love it.
No pleasure for pleasure's sake.
I'm from the South.
Yeah. South Philly. No, I'm joking.
So here, I don't know. I just think I agree with you guys that the narrative is hard to follow. We don't know why the dude's upset, but the girl giggles, and we don't know why the psychic's befuddled that this walrus showed up twice.
Yeah.
We don't know, and we end not knowing.
Yeah.
I think for me, this poem was more about language and what she did with language. So I guess that's just the decision. Is that enough?
Yeah.
Or is that not satisfying for you? You
And
know?
I think, and I'm with you, but I think the narrative is clear. Like, we know what the setting is. What's not clear is, like, the emotional logic of the poem.
Right.
And that part is the language is beautiful, and I'm befuddled, but is the poet giving me a new language for these emotions, and I don't know what the emotions are, right? So
Right.
that's the piece that's fuzzy for me.
I wonder if it's a kind of just lighthearted poem about people who are in love with each other, and when you see somebody who interprets everything as a bad omen, it's funny, because it means nothing, but they get wigged out by it, and then you laugh, and it's just a sort of type of, I don't know if it's enough of a moment of but it's a weird type of intimacy when you have that, and my wife is from another country, so they have a whole different set of superstitions, and occasionally you just get hit by a random one. Like if you're standing in a doorway, suddenly the family freaks out. Like, get out of the doorway, you know. And like suddenly you're the worst guy because you were standing in the doorway. And then once it passes, you're like, it's kind of funny because then you think, oh, what's going on here? All these people are crazy. And then you realize you have your own set of things that you impose on them.
Yeah.
Sure.
But it's sort of, I think it's kind of a nice moment between them. I don't know if is that enough? I think it's kind of interesting. I mean, I like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's it sounds like me also just completely reading my own narrative into the poem.
No, I mean, I think that's clearly in there. The dude who had his tea leaves read is wigged out. And so was the psychic. But the person who's telling us the story is not. And maybe that's why, Marion's calling for emotions. I think it's for her, it's images. It's imagining this walrus. And that's why,
people who don't get scared by psychics, I think it's kind of a gift, and it's also kind of a curse, because I get totally freaked out. If anyone says anything psychic around me, I bug out. I don't want to know anything. I'm very superstitious. But yet when somebody says, oh, I don't believe any of that, I think, well, that's weird too.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That binary logic.
Yeah.
Like perhaps there are two forms of resistance there.
Yeah. But if you obviously must believe if you get wigged out, then a part of you believes.
Everything.
So that's why you're scared.
Yeah, there's such the vast majority of my brain is telling me, don't believe it.
Yeah.
But it has nothing against the tiny little fragment that's like spooked.
And so I guess that is also them for redeeming the poem for me too, right? Which is to say, the pattern emerged twice. Yeah. The sign is there. It's like the oracle, right? Yeah. The oracle's telling you secrets, but what the hell that secret means, you never really know, right? I guess I crave a little bit more of clarity around that confusion, right? Like and maybe that's in the title, right? The walrus in the tea leaves just is on the nose, right? Like there's a walrus in the tea leaves and that walrus shows up twice. So so where's the delight? Where's the surpriseness? But as we've talked about it, I think I'm becoming more and more charmed, right, by the lack of clarity about the meaning of the walrus, which is cool.
And love poems are so corny that if this is one,
this is
I'm
not
okay
a love
with
poem.
it.
Is this a love poem? All right, if this is a love poem, then it's awesome because it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't.
I think it's a love poem.
Yeah.
They're both love poems. Yeah. I mean, it's a more honest type of love because you're able to see the omen. You're able to see, it's not just some stupid fog of bliss where you think everything's going to be perfect. But every day is going to be like this. You have...
Every day is Bora Bora.
The stupid fog of bliss might actually be the title of this episode.
Hey, Sarah. Yes. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but you have said so little this time. Do you have nothing to say about this poem?
I like listening to what you have to say.
Okay, then that's good enough. Yeah. We won't pressure you.
I'm changing my opinion, though, on this poem.
Right? I know. This conversation really spun me around, too. Although I do think, P.S., contact marybethwren.com, psychicmarybethwren.com.
You're all advertisements.
Maybe she'll tell us about the walrus.
You know what, you guys?
What?
The walrus starts it off. The time has come to talk of blah, 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 blah. That's the line from Alice in Wonderland. And I actually think the Beatles' I Am the Walrus is from that walrus.
Really?
I do.
I got to read Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah. I did read the real book, but it was a long time ago.
It's been a while.
Okay, so are we voting? Shall we?
Voting.
After
Tim has one more thing to say.
After we vote, can we talk about the possibility of a new title?
Wait, we should talk about that first. What's your idea?
A different title.
I disagree.
It's just too on the nose for me. It's too I like,
But see, Marion said that she didn't like not having the reveal till the fourth stanza, and I said, but the title then helps place you.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like it's not that the reveal bothered me in the fourth stanza. It's just that I don't understand the sort of looseness of the start. Darling, it wasn't the news you'd expected, and when you told me about it, I giggled. I get that, right? And then what she do? She conjures images of broken symmetries, kaleidoscope and compass, magnetic poles, and mirrors gone random. I am lost there, right? I knew what you were hoping for. I don't. How you tilted your throat back and swallowed down the void. That's this person chugging tea.
Right.
Right?
And that's totally the drink me moment of Alice in Wonderland. It goes down the void.
Right. So you're bringing Alice in Wonderland as such a strong context for this poem, and I don't know that the poet intends for that illusion. I'm not sure. Now, if that's so, then maybe that should be in the title, right? I don't know, or like some indication of Alice in Wonderland.
An idea? Do you have an idea, or you just aren't with this straight up title?
I'm not with the title. The thing that I would start with would just be for Doug, and then I would start with after that. I would
well, that's because you read this as a love poem as well.
True.
That's true.
I would start with some image at the end, maybe where the walrus is, or maybe seafloor of Moloch. I'd start with something that was not at the center. I would start with an image that was near the center,
right,
to pull the reader towards that moment.
Okay. So after we vote, I think that, we're always doing new things, but we can have a conversation with Laura about this title and let her listen to this conversation first.
I think that's the move.
Yeah.
I think that's the move. Bring the poet in.
Right.
Ready?
Okay. All right. Shall we vote?
Wait, can we vote psychically? No, I'm joking.
Here's my coffee.
Wait, let me look at the bottom of your
cold
coffee
brew
cup.
coffee's got nothing.
From Joe.
All right. 1, 2, 3, vote. And it's in. No surprise.
Good joob.
All right. One more from Laura.
Déjà Vu, 1979. There has to be darkness and a highway. Beyond the shoulders of the road, a topography splayed and lit in street lamps. You're 17, and Hotel California is playing on the radio. If you look close enough, you can see the silhouette of mountains beyond your own reflection in the car window. To the right, an anchor store in a strip mall. To the left, the gas station where high school boys work. The good-looking ones who sweep the silk of their long bangs from their eyes with puppy-soft hands. And ask if you want regular or unleaded. Watching them comb your windshield clean beneath the squeegee's wide, forgiving blade, you might imagine whispering, "Save me," and wonder, does anyone do that anymore? The windshield washing, you mean, of course. And you know that if you slid your fingers inside the thick baffles of their goose-down vests, down into the warmth beneath their soft-as-ash flannel shirts, your palms would smell like gasoline and their father's Old Spice, and that in the star-bristled night, every imagined kiss was a curfew exquisitely unfair, and a promise you had made in a fever to return home what you'd borrowed just the way you found it.
Woo woo!
Woo! Seriously,
I love this
Laura
poem.
Ross. I have to tell you,
Big reveal. Love it.
When I read this, like on the page, I was ready to go. Hotel California, 17, Waka Waka, right? But what a joy to read that poem out loud. That is a tour de force.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be completely transparent. That of her packet was the one that made me go, shut the front door, and look harder at the other two.
Yeah.
I was like reading, and these discussions and hearing them aloud today made me respect them even more than I did going in. Mm-hmm. But this Déjà Vu was the one that made me come closer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's interesting, you guys talking about it in the context of the other two, because this one is again just this like a bunch. She sets a scene, it's image, and then when we get up close enough to the boy squeegeeing the windshield, that's when the language just gets even richer and intense, and we stay there. lingering all the way to the Old Spice.
I love the imaginative moves that she's making too. Like there has to be darkness in a highway, which is the equivalent of Once Upon a Time, but it's so
Right.
interestingly specific.
Yeah.
And then just the movement from like looking through the windshield but seeing your face reflected on the windshield, and then the windshield takes you to the Squeegeeboy, right? And then imagining yourself like inside the feel of that vest and that body, like it's an absolute embrace, right?
Yeah.
Imaginative embrace. So, wow, that's kind of wicked good.
I would, I have to say the Hotel California thing. If there's any possible way to change songs, time period.
Dude, seriously, that's
Let
I
her
saw that. I was
Hotel
like,
California, you guys.
Hotel California.
What the F? It's 1979.
I know, and there's
She's
so many other
17.
choices.
exactly,
There's
but
so
it's
many
so
other choices.
cliche.
Oh, my
So
God.
Just any
cliche.
song.
The
I could-
Eagles
I
are
could-
what you play when
Eagles.
you're driving in a car.
That's true. But there are even any other Eagles song.
Can you sing it now? Can you do it off the top of your head? Go ahead.
No,
Come on.
no, we don't want
I was
that.
gonna do.
No,
What do you-
Sarah, do you know it?
that was way
No,
before my
no,
time.
no. What, just because it was the album title? I mean, what the hell's wrong with Hotel California?
It's the same thing that's
cheesy.
wrong with Stairway to Heaven.
You think it's cheesy?
There's nothing
little
wrong
bit.
with Stairway to Heaven. Them's fighting words.
Yeah, if it was Stairway to Heaven, I might have checked out.
Right.
Hotel California in 1979, and she's 17 and in a car seemed pretty damn appropriate.
See, I was confused by that though. Going back to say you're 17. Is she 17 in the poem though, or is she reminiscing about when she was 17?
Right, she's 17 in the poem. In 1979,
Okay.
she's
Well, she
17.
doesn't say I. She says you are.
Well,
It's like
the
this
speaker.
imaginative,
Yeah.
right? Like you're 17.
But the person in the poem is 17.
Right.
Right?
Okay,
Right. The person having this moment
then
is
why is it
17.
called Déjà Vu?
that's what. Yeah.
Because-
Is
well-
she just remembering of when she was 17?
I think so, yes. She
now
might
I'm
be.
racking my brain for the lyrics of Hotel California. Did Déjà Vu get mentioned in that song?
No, I think it's a deja vu moment. She's just transported back to being 17 in 1979, you know. And when I say she, I don't mean necessarily Laura Ross. I mean the protagonist, the person we're getting described, the person who says "save me."
Yeah, but this person
To the
is,
boy
is
with
such
the
a
bangs.
hypothetical, right? It really is like this hypothetical person, like
Sure.
this abstract person who's conjured by Laura. There has to be darkness in a highway. It's like
Yeah.
she's the cinematographer,
Right.
and sets the scene and go.
And you know how
right?
romantic that is. It's like a girl looking out the bus window, right? That is a trope. But then the fact that she gets as specific as she does with the flannel and the Old Spice and all of that is what, you know, makes it individual. You know what's funny is I'm thinking about Tressa Leo's poem.
Which one?
I forget the name of it, but I teach it frequently. That's why it's like really up in my mind.
Yeah.
We'll link this on the show notes.
Is
but,
it the one about Woodside?
No, the stop, go. I'm a four-way stoplight. It's about it's about teen years at an intersection.
Wow.
The metaphor is
Okay,
an intersection.
okay.
Stop, go, don't stop.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And I'm reminded of that in a
Yeah.
great way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, why were we going woo when we first ended it? What were we celebrating?
You went woo.
So did Marion.
Yeah. But that's,
I know. I mean, I already talked and talked. I want to hear what other people
well,
say.
but that's a great question. Was the woo on this side of the table? I think
Yeah.
it might have been
It was me and you.
half. It's a half a woo, right? Okay, so other half. If it's not a woo woo, what's
Okay,
your-
yeah, let's ask the young female
If-
at the table.
Okay.
Can we really? I am going to put you. I didn't put you on the spot last time. Now I am. Let me play teacher, Sarah. What do you think?
I think at first I was very, I was confused at the time. I was wondering, did she write this in 1979 or is she looking back? Of course, the title gives you a clue to that. Also, the language of you kind of put me off in a way too, because I don't know. I think using you in any sort of literature can be really dangerous at times because obviously not obviously, but I've never experienced this moment, and I don't know. As a 20-year-old, I don't like to think back of when I was 17.
Right.
At least
still
not
too
yet.
close. It's a little too close.
So,
Right.
Yeah. And then I was, again, confused at the second half of the poem. So what I thought was happening in this poem was that she was, say, however old she is now, let's say 40, 50, etc. She's cruising down a highway, and she goes to a gas station. And while she's reminiscing about when she was 17, she's admiring this young boy with a squeegee, and that made me a little uncomfortable. So that put me off at first. I was confused at who the speaker was, and how old she was.
Yeah, I don't know. She was just immediately 17 for me.
I loved the gasoline and Old Spice image.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that too.
Yeah.
And when we were talking about this poem, I started thinking how much different 17 was in 1979 than it is now. I mean, now it's like, what's the equivalent for now? 25? I mean, 17 in 1979, you were out. I mean, you could go off and get married, have kids. The guys had like beards in 1979 and mustaches. They had the porn mustaches. And
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
we
right.
probably did
And
expect more of our youth than we do now.
17-year-olds now have less freedom than I had when I was 8 in 1979. I was in 79.
Less
I was
freedom.
out.
We're going to get in a whole other
Yeah.
tangent. I don't know if it's less freedom or less expectations.
Oh, don't
kids.
say that.
Well,
though.
kids
Well,
are
you
allowed to
can't-
stay young longer.
Different expectations.
Definitely,
different
definitely.
expectations. Yeah, kids stay kids much, much longer. But I mean, if we really want to go through this and determine, I think she's addressing the you is because she's addressing her 17-year-old self. And she, from year 17, and Hotel California is playing on the radio, I never thought she was a pervert cougar
No.
at all, like Sarah
No,
thought.
this is the whole
That's like cracking me up that you went
That's
there.
the harmony
Yeah.
between her looking back
Yeah.
is perfect. I mean, I think it really works. She's looking back, and she's looking back at what life was like when she was 17.
Sure.
Right.
And everything works. I mean, at 17 is
Yeah.
different now than it was then. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I
Right.
mean, now in colleges, if you want to talk about anything dirty, you have to say trigger warning.
Warnings,
You have
right.
to.
Yeah.
If you can't even assume someone is a boy or a girl in a college
Yeah.
class nowadays.
So
I mean, it's much different.
I hear you, right? But Sarah, I get you on why it might be confusing, and that's hysterical to think that it's a pervert cougar who's like imagining groping, right, a gas station attendant. But I think the use of the second person is a kind of conjuring, right? And so going back to that title, Déjà Vu, it's like almost like a hypnotic gesture. It's like, okay, close your eyes. There has to be darkness. You're on a highway. Okay, now you're 17 and
Right.
So the conjuring
Yeah.
is what pulls you in. So the you is as much her as it is you, the listener. We're imagining you or the reader into this position, and then it's just this series of imaginative moves that gets you like in this like intimate position of like being able to smell the gasoline and Old Spice off the squeegee guy, right? And then for me, that's the move out, and this goes to that angstiness of rushing home, right? And in that star-bristled night, every imagined kiss was a curfew. Like you knew you had to get home, exquisitely unfair, and a promise you had made in a fever to return home what you'd borrowed just the way you found it. Like begging to borrow the car, begging to go out driving, drinking from your parents' liquor bottles and filling it up with water so that nobody catches. You know what I mean? Like that 70s era like affect, gone
Yeah.
in the dust, doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Every imagined kiss was a curfew, exquisitely unfair.
Yeah.
I love that. Because when you have a curfew,
Right.
it's every minute is more precious.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just exquisitely unfair.
Yeah.
And it's also hypnotic, like the Old Spice and the gasoline and the flannel. It's all because you're so hyper aware of all of the details when you're 17 and in love.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy, you're so aware of every tiny thing.
Yeah.
And this poem is about that moment where she remembers all of the details of what it's like because it's different when you're in your 40s, when you're 30s, and you're 20s. I mean, every decade has its own feel to it.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
she's there.
But you know what? I'm going to pick on Sarah again. Is this moment relatable though? I think I feel like these two are talking more like this is not a feeling anybody has anymore, and I think these feelings can still be had by current 17-year-olds. I happen to know teenagers who still take alcohol and put water in the bottles. That's not gone. Curfews still exist. Like, I don't know what, other than Hotel California on the radio, and you don't have some 70s classic station on, I don't know what feeling here a teenager couldn't have in 2016.
I think, judging by what you've said, both Tim and Marion, I do think my age affects how I read this poem, because as a 20-year-old, I don't have any, quote, good times to look back on. The good old days.
Because you're in them.
They don't feel like that. But so to me right now, I think this reads as, maybe my grandparents saying, oh, back in the 70s was, the best, that was the time to be alive. And for me, I wasn't even, what is that, a twinkle in God's eye in the 70s. So I think there are things that are relatable, but the idea of looking back, decades back, onto almost the past self is completely unrelatable to me.
Yeah, well, I wasn't talking about the déjà vu part. I was talking about that moment of like transporting yourself into the arms of the boy pumping your gas.
That's relatable for
that's
so
what I
many.
meant.
Yeah,
that's what I meant. The live action of the moment,
right?
Is
definitely yeah.
Right,
but there's that other moment of just looking back is unrelatable.
Right. Yeah, I meant aside from that, like what actually happens is the reverie with the boy.
I think
still happens.
I think the good times are gone.
I
know
thought
why?
the good times are being hyper
No,
surveilled.
the good times are in the phone. Because nobody's noticing the squeegee boy anymore.
No, Sarah
Seriously,
just said they are. You can
but
still
they're
have
not.
these moments.
They're not. Every person walking down is staring at their phones, and they're not looking around at people anymore.
Before phones, it was a newspaper.
They're looking at their Facebook hits.
But this is why this poem is so important, because now Sarah
I totally agree.
she just got the experience of imagining the squeegee boy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it's just they're real people.
They still fall in love with the barista. You still, it's fine, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and the they are fewer. The smaller population of people falling in love with the barista is fewer. I see it in class. I mean, it doesn't. Maybe it was decades ago, but when we were in college, there wasn't the same type of internet usage. And there's always the possibility of meeting somebody in class, sitting next to a girl you liked, or playing in a band with somebody. There's a lot of social energy going on. And I don't see that in the classroom now. I see at least half of the people, when I get in there, are on their phones.
Yeah.
And if there's a room that can seat 50 people and there's 20 people in the class, they're equidistant from each other. You just scattered in a confetti of people.
Yeah.
And they're like not even like gunning to sit next to people. And I think it's odd.
Yeah, the room is quieter, that's for sure. I mean,
maybe the good times aren't completely dead.
Right.
But it's dying, I think. I think they're going in there. And it's not against people who have the phone, because certainly many people, especially people who are in creative writing classes and things like that, pay more attention to the details of life. But but in general classes, more people are on the phone and not paying attention.
Do you think it's your presence that influences that?
The influences their
inability your perception of their inability to socialize. Do you think the minute you walk into the classroom, they stop talking? Because I'll tell you that happens.
No.
When the professor walks in, it's all time to work.
I don't think there's that going on. I don't run that tight of a ship. I mean, I think in maybe some classes where their teachers are strict, they might do that, but I think they know I don't care if they're. I like the noise of the class. I grew up in a strict religious school where you weren't allowed to talk. You had to sit like a prisoner all day. I like hearing the noise of people and,
All right, so let's bring it back to the poem.
Yes, and I would say when I think about PBQ readers, lovers of poetry are going to dig this poem, I think, for the way it sort of tumbles into its ideas and discoveries and delivers on this, nostalgia in a way. And I also think somebody like my husband's going to love this poem because he worked as this squeegee guy. He was this guy. He had a gas station job. I hear about that all the time. Like, he knew how to do it, right? Like, he was like squeegee in the front window and the back window, thank you very much, and checking your oil and wishing you a good trip.
I love any poem that is like a diving board that launches you into that type of headspace where you're thinking about all these things.
Yeah.
That totally works for me.
I think even though I can't relate to this, déjà vu kind of moment and things like that, I think you're right, though. I can appreciate this for her technical use of language and things like that. So, yeah. I think you're right.
Great. Shall we vote?
I think so.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, vote. And it's in!
Woohoo!
Laura Ross, 3 for 3.
Bueno.
So amazing and perfect timing. We're at the end of our show here, the end of our time. I would like to remind our listeners that you can go read all of those poems. They will appear on our podcast pages, but today's trio will also be in the book.
Yay!
Woohoo! So please go to our Facebook page and tell us what you think of millennials versus teens in the 70s, and tell us what you think of these poems and what does a walrus in the tea leaves mean. And we have so many questions for you. But we're also looking for your questions. We would love to do a special episode where we just answer your questions. So ask away. Send us an email, comment on the Facebook page, whichever you'd like to do. Please share this podcast with your friends and frenemies, and follow us on social media. And if you send us a self-addressed stamped envelope, we'll send you a sticker that celebrates the podcast for your laptop. And if you put enough postage on it, Tim Fitz will send you a Tastykake. Unless that's illegal. We'll have to find out.
I'm also accepting Tastykakes.
Actually, I think that's great. I think you should accept recommendations for Tastykakes for the day in which you sit down for your taste test.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll
right.
happily respond to some sort of online forum. I can respond.
All right.
Donations.
Thank you, everybody. Keep reading.
Yay. Yeah, Déjà Vu.
Welcome to the Hotel